Ahead on this special edition of NewsWatch, Inauguration Day is here. What to expect in the first 100 days as Donald Trump becomes the 45th president of the United States. Plus, treating Israel like a friend instead of a foe. How President Trump will take a new approach to our Middle East problems. And from presidential Bibles to Inauguration First, we take a look back at important moments from inaugural history. And thank you so much for joining us for this CBN NewsWatch Inauguration Special. I'm Ephraim Graham. Today, Americans have a new president, Donald Trump, taking the oath of office before massive crowds in our nation's capital. It is one of the most amazing sights in the world, a peaceful transition of power from the world's most powerful leader to his elected successor. The events are marked with celebrations and solemn moments, including this one, as Donald Trump and Mike Pence laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. The president-elect and his family also visiting another D.C. landmark, the Lincoln Memorial, for a Make America Great Again concert. Now Trump shifts from candidate to his post as world leader. The incoming president clearly intends to get off to a very fast start with new executive orders today and Senate approval of several nominees. And Donald Trump is ready to move quickly on his key priorities on everything from cutting taxes to repealing Obamacare to a new Supreme Court justice. David Brody brings us this look at Trump's plans for the first 100 days.
You could potentially accomplish a lot in 100 days. You could lose weight. You could walk from New York to Los Angeles at a brisk pace, or even write the U.S. Constitution. All big victories. That's what President Trump hopes for in his first 100 days.
I think the first couple months for Donald Trump is going to be very intense because he wants wins. He really wants points on the board.
At Real Clear Politics, A.B. Stoddard knows what presidents face in this town. She says Trump is about to get a dose of congressional reality.
He's going to find that it's not a boardroom, and that you have to do some care and feeding of members of Congress, or in the end you lose.
While the to-do list is fairly long, the priority of tax reform will be a complex task.
It's very, very tricky to try to take away any of the carve-outs in the tax code. There's a constituency and a lobby for everyone, and it's been tried before.
Trump has already talked infrastructure improvement, and Democrats seem willing to work with him on it. Then, of course, there's repealing and replacing Obamacare.
The conservatives that have been waiting for this since 2010 will demand this. This is year 7, and they need some kind of action right away.
Evangelicals want results, too, from the defunding of Planned Parenthood to Trump fulfilling his promise to repeal the Johnson Amendment, which muzzles pastors in the pulpit.
Free speech is being taken away from people that are great people, from people that are saying good things, not bad things.
But Trump's biggest move could happen within just weeks of taking the oath.
High profile, the Supreme Court pick. Crucial to everything, sets the tone at the beginning, I would think. He's got to come out strong there.
That pick, which is coming in 2 weeks after he's inaugurated, is going to be such an important beginning. Many voters voted for Donald Trump with a stomachache because they want a Supreme Court with 3 more conservative justices on it, or at least 1 or 2, possibly 3. And that, to many voters, was the sole reason for voting for Donald Trump.
As the country waits for that name, Trump will be busy with pen in hand. The plan? Reverse many of Obama executive actions and end burdensome federal and environmental regulations. The new president won't need Congress to approve the Keystone Pipeline or leave the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal that Obama put in place, but lawmakers never approved. Trump can also stop climate change payments to the United Nations. It's a lot to keep up with, so sign up for Twitter, because that's where you're going to find the new bully pulpit of the presidency, as the new Commander-in-Chief Trump breaks new ground by going directly to the people as Tweeter-in-Chief. David Brody, CBN News.
And we've got special coverage of President Trump's inauguration and his plans for the country, including pro-life issues, a Supreme Court interview with Jay Sekulow, and much more. That's all happening throughout the day on the 700 Club, on the ABC Freeform channel, on God TV at 2 p.m. and at cbnnews.com. So be sure to continuously check us out. One of President Trump's top aides is celebrating twice as much today. Kellyanne Conway enters Washington as a counselor to the president after helping him win the White House as his campaign manager. And while she is celebrating that victory at inaugural events, she's also celebrating her 50th birthday today. And she is not the only member of Trump's team celebrating a birthday. Incoming UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is turning 45 today. As incoming UN Ambassador, Haley supports moving the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Trump promised to make that move during the presidential campaign. Haley told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee this week that, quote, that absolutely she backs the move because that's what Israel and congressional Republicans want. And she blasted the United Nations for its attacks on the Jewish state.
Nowhere has the UN's failure been more consistent and more outrageous than its bias against our close ally, Israel.
Haley also said she would never allow the UN to support an international environment that encourages boycotts of Israel. Today marks what many hope will be the start of better relations between the U.S. and Israel. For 8 years, President Obama often took a hard line against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his policies. But as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, we're about to see a big change.
When Donald Trump stunned the world on Election Day, some knew it also signaled a transformation in the U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Night and day. I think it will be dramatic. And it'll be immediate. There's no doubt in my mind.
Former Governor Mike Huckabee sees a big difference over the last 8 years.
I'm very optimistic about these next few years. I think it's going to mark a dramatically improved relationship between Israel and the United States.
The one thing that we can be very confident about with Donald J. Trump is he's a man of change.
Trump transition team member Becky Norton Dunlap believes Trump will take a new look at old Middle East problems.
I think that's one reason why people in Israel who have not liked the old way of doing things are hopeful and optimistic, because they at least see that in this new president, America is going to relook at some of these old problems.
Huckabee sees the failed two-state solution, the plan to give the Palestinians their own country side by side with Israel, as one old problem. Another one, the unwillingness to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He expects David Friedman, Trump's choice for ambassador to Israel, will be part of addressing those changes.
I think he believes we need to stop the BDS movement, which is very hurtful, not just to Israelis, it's hurtful to the Arab population of Israel as well. I think he will lead in helping get the embassy moved, and I hope he will help to forever put an end to what I consider an unworkable, irrational policy of the so-called two-state solution that, frankly, both Democrats and Republicans have put forward.
The signal is we're going to take a new look at things, and we're putting someone in there who's not the same old, same old.
With his decisions so far, it's fair to say that the Middle East hasn't seen anything quite like Donald Trump. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
In his 8 years in office, President Barack Obama refused to use the words radical Islamic terrorism to describe terror attacks around the world. President Trump is promising the exact opposite, and not just in naming the enemy, but taking on the threat. George Thomas is on the story.
16 years after former President George W. Bush made this pledge,
our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda. But it does not end there. It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated.
America's so-called war on terror continues.
This is the most complicated threat environment the United States has seen in recent memory.
From the desert sands of the Middle East to the shores of Africa, to Asia, to here at home, a new study shows the U.S. has already spent nearly $5 trillion trying to defeat terrorism.
As a nation, we are reminded almost daily that the threats to our homeland have not receded in any way. The challenges to our way of life have not diminished.
Tens of thousands of terrorists have been killed. In Syria and Iraq alone, the U.S. military estimates that some 50,000 ISIS fighters have been eliminated. And yet,
ISIS remains a resilient movement that still controls major urban centers throughout the Middle East. We must ensure that they and those they inspire cannot expand their reach.
To do otherwise, says the nominee to head the Defense Department, would have deadly consequences.
Increasingly, we see islands of stability in our hemisphere, democracies here in Europe and in Asia under attack by non-state actors and nations that mistakenly see their security in the insecurity of others.
Here in Kenya, where authorities have welcomed America's help in fighting a deadly Islamic terrorist organization, some are looking forward to working with a new administration that isn't reluctant to confront the enemy head-on. If there's one thing the Kenyans appreciate about Donald Trump, it is that he is not afraid to name the enemy. And so far, based on his selection for his national security advisor, the CIA post, and Attorney General, all three men have called it radical Islamic terrorism. Michael Flynn, Trump's national security advisor, and Michael Ledeen, a foreign policy analyst, are co-authors of The Field of Fight. They say Obama's reluctance to recognize the religious motivation behind terrorism has made the U.S. ineffective in executing the war on terror.
Since the days of Sun Tzu, that you can't defeat an enemy you cannot describe or define. And by making it impossible for the West to talk about radical Islam, it made it impossible for us to design a strategy that would ultimately defeat it.
Trump has vowed to be more forthright than Obama, saying numerous times that he will take the fight to radical Muslims.
We will defeat radical Islamic terrorism, just as we have defeated every threat we've faced at every age and before.
Flynn and Ledeen argue that Trump must, among other things, also take on the ideology of radical Islam if we are to ever win this war on terror.
We have to go after them ideologically, we have to go after them militarily, we have to destroy their armies, and we have to humiliate them in front of their own people.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Coming up, a big day for the Bible. We'll show you how Donald Trump and past presidents have taken the oath of office on the Word of God. Before, during, and after the Trump inauguration, Christians have been praying for the incoming president. Believers from across the nation holding prayer walks and prayer events in Washington, D.C. Thursday. Reverend Patrick Mahoney saying, after a very divisive and bitter campaign season, our nation can come together in unity around the platform of prayer, crying out in one voice for God to bring healing and restoration to our nation. Greater New Hope Baptist Church held worship and prayer with participants like James Dobson, Bishop Harry Jackson, Samuel Rodriguez, and Michelle Bachmann. And Saturday, President Trump attends a national prayer breakfast at Washington National Cathedral. The Bible has played a big part in our president's swearing-in ceremony. So, what Bible is President Trump using for his oath of office? And what about some of our other presidents? Here's a quick look.
It's a tradition that dates back to America's first president, taking the oath with one hand raised and the other on the Bible. George Washington started the custom in 1789. A newspaper report shows he bowed his head and kissed the Bible out of reverence. Since then, 4 presidents have used Washington's more than 220-year-old book at their swearing-in.
After choosing members of the cabinet and setting policy priorities, one of the decisions the new commander-in-chief must make is what book to use for the ceremonial swearing-in. While the Constitution does not require a Bible, using one often gives us a glimpse into the president's spiritual life.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
Ronald Reagan took the oath on his mother's well-worn Bible, open to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, which says, "If my people, who are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land."
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
Dwight Eisenhower's Bible from West Point was open to that same scripture. He also used the Washington Bible, open to Psalms, the book most referenced at presidential inaugurations. But Eisenhower wasn't the first with two Bibles. Harry Truman started the practice, followed by Richard Nixon, and the most recent,
and will, to the best of my ability,
came at Barack Obama's second inaugural. And although the iconic photo looks like his hand is on the Bible, Lyndon Johnson actually used John F. Kennedy's Catholic Book of Prayers left on Air Force One before his assassination. So what about America's 45th president? In 2012, Donald Trump told CBN News he receives Bibles from the public.
Where are all those Bibles anyhow now?
Well, actually, we keep them in a certain place, a very, very nice place. But people send me Bibles, and, you know, it's very interesting. I get so much mail, and because, like, you know, I'm in this incredible location in Manhattan, you can't keep most of the mail you get.
CBN News has confirmed when Donald Trump takes the oath of office, he'll use the Bible his mother gave him in 1955, as well as the Lincoln Bible, continuing a long-standing bipartisan inaugural tradition that signals a new beginning. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Up next, Hail to the Chief. From Washington to Reagan, we'll show you some great moments from presidential inaugurations gone by. As the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump follows his predecessors with traditions set long before him. That provides us now with an opportunity to look back at some of the historic moments from previous inaugurations.
The first inauguration took place in New York at Federal Hall with George Washington. That's where the Capitol was located in the early days of our republic. George Washington gave a speech. It was a very short speech by today's comparisons.
FDR's 1932 inaugural was a big deal and widely paid attention to. And criticized the money changers in the temple, which was a dig at Herbert Hoover, who was his predecessor and outgoing president, and was sitting right there.
What I remember about President Obama's inauguration was the energy in Washington and around the country. So many people were excited, not just because he was a popular candidate, but because of the historic nature of his presidency.
The purpose of inaugurations is to show that peaceful transfer of power.
One of the first transfers of power from one party to another was after the election of 1800 and 1801, when John Adams was the outgoing president. He lost a tough election to Thomas Jefferson, but he did not stay for all the inauguration festivities, and he left town and went to Boston, so he didn't have to see it. Interestingly, when his son, John Quincy Adams, left power, he did the same thing and did not watch Andrew Jackson, who was his bitter rival, take over. So I think poor sportsmanship may have run in the Adams family.
Our country is leading the world in the general readjustment to the results of the great conflict.
Calvin Coolidge, when he was inaugurated, he spoke, and his speech went out on radio, which is a relatively new technology, and via radio he could reach so many more people.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
So Eisenhower now comes in the television age, and at the same time that Eisenhower is being inaugurated, there is the famous I Love Lucy episode, in which I Love Lucy gives birth to little Ricky. Obviously, they didn't show this on screen, this was in the 1950s, but it was a really big deal at the time, and the numbers for that I Love Lucy episode were much larger than for the Eisenhower inauguration. And so 10 years after, when Eisenhower is no longer president, he sees Lucille Ball. And he goes up to her, and she's with a little boy, and he says, "Is this the little boy who took away the attention from my inauguration?"
The biggest memory of the balls is always the First Lady's gown. Everyone wants to know what the First Lady's wearing. I remember President Obama's first inaugural, Michelle Obama wore the beautiful white flowing gown. They looked very elegant together.
The designer of Barbara Bush's gown wrote about how he sold the same gown to another lady who found out, it was before Barbara Bush picked it, And so he had to pick up the phone and say, "Darling, please wear the red gown you bought for me, not the blue one." And he couldn't say why. He couldn't say because Barbara Bush has chosen the blue one that I designed.
John F. Kennedy famously did not wear a top hat when he was inaugurated, and he went bareheaded. That was seen as a big deal, and it also harmed hat sales going forward.
It's a big event, and so invariably something goes a little bit wrong. During John F. Kennedy's inauguration, the podium, the lectern caught fire when the cardinal was speaking.
President Obama actually took the oath of office twice, because when he took it the first time at the Capitol, he transposed some words.
Faithfully, the office of President of the United States. The office of President of the United States, faithfully.
Because he was prompted incorrectly by Chief Justice John Roberts. So after inauguration, his lawyers talked to him and said, we think this is still legal, you're still president, this took, but just in case, someone was to come back and challenge the legitimacy of your presidency, let's do this again.
William Henry Harrison was a war hero, War of 1812. He became president, and he gave an 1 hour and 45-minute speech. It was bitter cold, he was outside, and he died of pneumonia a month later. And so some historians think that there was a correlation, that he was out too long in the cold, speaking too long.
President Obama's first inauguration was freezing. That's all I have to say about that.
And just a reminder, we've got special coverage of President Trump's inauguration and his plans for the country. That is happening throughout the day on the 700 Club, on the ABC Freeform channel, and on God TV, as well as at CBNnews.com. So be sure to join us and check that out. That is going to do it for this inauguration special on CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at CBNnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can communicate with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you join us again right here next time. Have a fabulous Friday. We'll see you right back here come Monday.